What's up, guys? I want to do something a little different this time around. I think I want to start doing these team builder videos. That way I can just kind of share my thoughts as far as the draft goes, um, and kind of talk through with you guys kind of what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. I think that would be just a really cool kind of time of insight as far as how I approach drafting and team building and things like that. And obviously, I would love to kind of hear from you guys after watching this video. If you had any alternative perspectives or things that maybe you saw that I didn't. I'd love to hear your input as well. And also, this kind of gives me a chance to go back and really look at my draft. And make sure that my strategy held up the way that I wanted it to. So it's kind of a learning opportunity for me as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. And again, like I said, I'd love to hear from you guys because I definitely have things to learn as well, and I'd love to hear alternate perspectives. But I'm getting ready here for my match with Vincent. Obviously, I got our teams on the screen there. And Vincent's team is interesting to prep for. He's got a lot of versatility going here. I think he's got an interesting draft to prep for, and so I think I have good answers to pretty much anything that he might bring. I just can't necessarily fit all of them on the same team, and so I'm curious to see what he brings to kind of deal with me here. But I'm going to jump into kind of what I'm bringing, why I'm bringing it. But obviously you see right there, right off the bat, he's got that sand core with Gigalith and Excadrill, which is just always terrifying. You got to prep for Sandrush Excadrill because he takes teams apart by himself, and so obviously that's the first thing that we noticed there. He's also got some pretty decently fast mons in the Weavile and the Zeraora. So he's got some speed going for him too. Salamence is pretty fast as well. But right off the bat, I see he's got a couple of weaknesses that appear in his team pretty heavily. I'm looking at the ground weakness. Ground is really good against Excadrill, Gigalith, the Zeraora, and that Volcanion. He's also got an ice type weakness in the Salamence, the Roserade, and the Delmise. I don't see any scenario where he brings all of those mons on the same team, but you'll see kind of in my team building, I do have a little bit of coverage just to kind of give me an option against some of those Pokemon if he brings them. So I've got a little bit of a theme going on my team this time around, which we'll get into here in just a second. But he's got a lot of options here to bring against me, and so we'll see how that ends up going. But this is my team for this week. Obviously, right off the bat, we got Beans the Entei. I'm loving the nicknaming here. So I've got Beans the Entei. We're running heavy duty boots just to avoid any stealth rock damage. If he wanted to set up stealth rocks, he does have a couple of mods that he can do that with, in the Excadrill, the Gigalith can set up rocks and things of that nature. And so I got the boots to just kind of keep me safe there. This speed stat here is to make sure that I speed tie with the Salamence if he is running Jolly or Timid max speed. We have the same base speed, so I don't want to get outsped by that because it does get things like Earthquake and Hydro Pump and things of that nature to do some damage to Entei here, and so I want to make sure I'm not outsped. And so I've got the max speed here, obviously max attack just to do as much damage as possible. I'm going with extreme speed. Like I mentioned before, he's got a lot of very fast mons on his team, and so I wanted to make sure I had some priority options as well in case I need to hit them. Obviously, this will not do a whole lot against a fast Excadrill, because of that steel typing, so extreme speed's not going to help me a lot there, but it does help me against things like, Weavile, which outspeeds me. It does help me against things like Zero Aura, which outspeeds me. If I have really low health and I just want to get off some additional damage, extreme speed is always there to give me that option. Sacred Fire, good stab move. It's got the 50% chance to burn, which might come in handy if I can burn something on a switch in or things like that. That could really help me cripple a couple of mons if that goes in my favor there. So that's an option. Just really good stab move. Stone Edge is there for things like the Golisopod, the Salamence, things that don't want to take that super effective rock damage. I've got the Stone Edge for those. Flame Charge is an interesting choice. This is that theme I talked about earlier. I have on a couple of different Pokemon here, I've got some setup options. And I've got a few setup options that allow me to set up without forfeiting a turn. So I have options where I can still do damage while boosting one of my stats. Obviously Flame Charge is one of those options here. I like the Flame Charge here this week because if I can get off of Flame Charge on either taking something out that's got low health where I don't need as much power, or kind of using it on a switch, if I can get to that +1 speed, then I outspeed the Zero Aura, I outspeed the Weavile, both of which outspeed me normally, and so that could be helpful. And it also will allow me to continue to speed tie with a Salamence that gets to +1 using Dragon Dance, or that is rocking a Choice Scarf. And so I've got the Flame Charge for that. Inner Focus is good this week because it allows me to not be intimidated by the Salamence, which could come in handy, and it also allows me to shrug off any flinching. And he's got Fake Out options with Zero Aura and the Weavile. He also has a few Pokemon that could be running Rock Slide, and obviously Rock Slide is a good move to use against Entei. It's super effective. So I imagine that might come into play at some point, and this might help me to shrug off some of those, and so that's going to hopefully come in handy this week as well. So first we got Beans. Secondly, we got Dennis here, Life Orb. I'm running the 200 speed with a Jolly Nature. This makes sure that I'm not outsped by a max speed Roserade or anything slower than that. And so Roserade has a relatively decent matchup against certain members of my team, so it's not out of the question that it comes this week. And it does get some decent coverage options. Dazzling Gleam specifically, which would do super effective damage to Dennis here. And I don't have the best HP or the best special defense, and so I'm going to want to minimize those sorts of hits if I can avoid it. And so this speed makes sure that I outspeed a max speed Roserade unless it is rocking a Choice Scarf. And so that is something to consider there. Life Orb and some of my calcs, a little bit of extra damage was helpful. So I've got Life Orb for that. First Impression, I mentioned that priority being important. He's got some of those faster mons. First Impression could help me, revenge kill if I need to. It's really, really, really good against Weavile. Obviously, First Impression just tears him apart. Haxorus hits like a truck anyway, but it's a really good option against the Weavile. It's a good option against the Zero Aura, or like I said, if I'm just coming in and I want to try to revenge kill something that I don't outspeed normally, First Impression is a good option there. So we got that. Earthquake, I mentioned that ground weakness, so Earthquake is that coverage move, which does really well against things like the Gigalith and the Excadrill, obviously, but the Zero Aura, the Volcanion, we got that for them. Scale Shot, that's another one of those moves that allows me to set up without forfeiting a turn of damage. So Scale Shot has the potential to be weaker than a Dragon Claw if I get a low roll and only get 2 hits, but I'm comfortable with that trade-off because it is more likely that I will hit 3 or above, and so I'm going to run Scale Shot for the potential of the speed boost at the end of it. It does cost me defense, but if I can get if I can set up with Haxorus, that will most likely not matter, provided that I've gotten rid of things like the Weavile. So Got the Haxorus there, Scale Shot, Swords Dance, obviously, if I can get to +2, um, on a switch or on a hit that I know I can live, something to that effect. If I can get to +2 attack with a Life Orb and have Scale Shot boosting my speed, then that's not going to be a good day for Vincent. So I got that option there to see if that might be helpful. And obviously Scale Shot, like I said, if I can get off a Scale Shot, then I will continue to outspeed. I will outspeed those, those faster Zero Aura Weavile type Pokemon there. So First Impression is also good. I don't think I mentioned this. It out prioritizes the Ice Shard from Weavile, so that is also another option. Even if I am not at the best of health, I can click that, provided I'm first turn out, obviously, and I can click that over his Ice Shard. So, third option, we got Marcus the Skarmory. Now, I'm rocking a fully defensive set here. Skarmory is arguably the best, or one of the best, checks to Excadrill in the game, which is why I'm not completely sold on the thought process that he will bring it. He may, just because it does a lot pretty much all the time, but Skarmory does not care about Excadrill whatsoever. It's immune to the Earthquake. Iron Head does like negative 12% to it. Rock Slide does basically nothing. Skarmory's just so bulky that it just does not care. And so I've got Skarmory here for the Excadrill. It also does really well against the Roserade. I can switch in on both stabs there, being immune to the poison type and resisting the grass moves. So that's a good option there. It also is a decent switch in to Hatterene, provided he's not going for Mystical Fire. Mystical Fire hurts, but I take the Psychic type moves and the Moon Blasts and things like that, or the Dazzling Gleams, excuse me. I don't think Hatterene gives Moon Blast. But I take those Fairy type moves really, really well also, having resisted them. And so Body Press does considerable damage to a lot of his team. It really hurts Weavile, really hurts Excadrill, really hurts Gigalith, things like that. So Body Press is a really good option for switching in, or for after I've switched into those mons that Skarmory naturally switches into. Roost, obviously, for the longevity. Brave Bird. I have Brave Bird for things like the Delmise, the Golisopod, the Roserade, the Conkeldurr. I went with Brave Bird over a Drill Peck or a Dual Wing Beat or something like that just because of the damage output when I was running the calcs. I'm not wanting to take the recoil, but I think there are going to be certain situations where I'm just going to need that extra power. And so I'm going Brave Bird over a different flying type attack this week. Iron Head is really just there for the Hatterene, because Hatterene can be scary if it gets going. Like I said, I'm definitely expecting Hatterene to come because it really does work against both the Haxorus and my Terrakion, which are two of my really, really big offensive threats, and so I would bet my left kidney that Hatterene will be coming, and so I really wanted to have something in the Iron Head for it because Hatterene is very, very slow, and so even if that Mystical Fire is likely to come out, I still have, I could still outspeed and hit it with that Iron Head and do some considerable damage there. So that's what we got going with Marcus. Now, Idaho is an interesting set this week. I'm excited about this one. I got the Throat Spray normal Silvally, okay? The Timid and the 216 speed is kind of for the same scenario that I described with the Haxorus. I don't want to get outsped by the Roserade, and so this speed allows me to outspeed that, provided that it's not scarfed. And I didn't want to invest any more in that because even at max speed, I still am outsped by the Salamence, the Zeraora, the Weavile, things like that, especially if they're running max speed as well, which they may not because they don't have to, but they could very easily be EV'd to outspeed a max speed Savali, and so this is just to make sure I outspeed Roserade and that particular speed tier. Max special attack for the damage output, and then the rest is just going in HP for defensive purposes. But Throat Spray activates whenever you use a sound-based move, i.e. Hyper Voice in this case. So I get the initial damage from Hyper Voice, and then Throat Spray boosts my special attack by 1 stage. And so I basically get the effects of a +1 there if I use Hyper Voice. I've got the coverage with Surf for things like the Excadrill and the Gigalith if that becomes necessary. Thunderbolt's really good on the Golisopod and on the Volcanion, just to have some coverage there. Ice Beam hits those ice weaknesses like I mentioned before, the Salamence, the Roserade, the Delmise, things like that. And so I do need to be wary of a potential Assault Vest Conkeldurr, which is a pretty popular set, because I don't have a lot for that, and I don't want to pull the trigger too quickly, because obviously Throat Spray, its effects are negated once I switch out, and so I may have to play around that Conkeldurr if I see it before I try to pull the trigger on something like this. But again, I've got setup options on a couple different Pokemon just to do my best to handle whatever his team may bring. So, normal Silvally this week, Idaho rocking the Throat Spray. We got Grapes, the Terrakion. Terrakion's just too good. It just hits so hard. It's got really good attack and really high base power moves, and so bringing Terrakion this week. This base speed here is to make sure that I outspeed everything that is not, again, the Zeraora and the Weavile. So this speed makes sure that I outspeed Salamence and everything slower. Again, barring any Choice Scarfs. Wide Lens is just to increase the accuracy of my stone edges, because that might be necessary against things like the Golisopod and the Volcanion and the Haxorus. So I'm running the Wide Lens Stone Edge. For that, Earthquake, again, that ground coverage, like I mentioned before, just to have a little bit of coverage there. Close Combat just hits like a truck, as long as it's not resisted and I don't have a better super effective attack. Close Combat's really good for those sorts of moments. Rock Polish. This gives me another option if that Excadrill gets under sand. So at this speed, if I hit Rock Polish, I outspeed Excadrill even in the sand. The only way he could outspeed me if I get up this Rock Polish is he would have to be Sand Rush, Jolly Nature, max speed, and holding a Choice Scarf, which is just ridiculous. And if he brings that, then it's not all that scary anyway, because it'll be stuck into one move. But that's the only way he would be able to outspeed me, and so I've got Rock Polish there as just a secondary option. I considered Swords Dance, but I wanted to have just a potential plan B for that speedy Excadrill in case Marcus goes down a little bit earlier than I had anticipated or designed. So Rock Polish, if I can get that up, that could kind of save me from that Excadrill sweep as well. And so got the Rock Polish for that. If it becomes necessary, I may hit it, I may not, but I wanted to have it just as a fail-safe. Lastly, we got Lilbop, the Mesprit. I'm running a defensive Mesprit this go-around. Psychic is good for the the Roserade, the Conkeldurr, things like that. Thunderbolt and Ice Beam are for coverage there. Thunderbolt really good against the Golisopod, the Volcanion. Obviously I have to be wary of the priority from Golisopod, since it does get that first impression, which is just gonna, that would do insane damage to me. I can potentially live one, but it just depends on the set and if I have any chip damage. It also gets Sucker Punch, which is something that does less damage, but it still hurts. And so I would not want to stay in on Golisopod, but if I'm predicting that switch, I might be able to catch it with a Thunderbolt. Um, and Thunderbolt's really good on the Volcanion as well. So Ice Beam, obviously, Rose Raid, Salamence, Delmise, none of them want to take an Ice Beam. I'm running Stealth Rocks. I originally had this set as an Assault Vest set with Grass Knot for the Gigalith. I elected to go to this set because I am still not entirely convinced that he's going to bring that Sand Core, just because of what I mentioned before, having the Skarmory as a switch in. He may elect to not even go that route just because of how potentially useless it might end up being because of the Skarmory. So I went Stealth Rocks because he's got quite a few Pokemon that are weak to the Stealth Rocks. In the Volcanion, the Weavile, Salamence, Golisopod, things like that. And in some of my calcs, that little bit of extra chip damage could make a big difference. Which is also why I have the 56 in special attack, because when I was running calcs, I needed just a little bit more power output here. So I elected to put some of it into the special attack. Now the thing with the Stealth Rocks is I need to be careful because he's got good hazard removal in the Excadrill and the Delmise, both of which get Rapid Spin, and both of which carry Rapid Spin pretty often. He also has Defog on his Salamence. I also think Conkeldurr gets Defog, which is weird, but I think that might be true as well. But he's got ways to get rid of those hazards. So I'll need to be careful as to when I set them up. I also will need to be careful because he's got that Magic Bounce Hatterene. And obviously I would not want to go Stealth Rocks in the face of that Hatterene and then just have it backfire on me. So Mespert's job primarily is to switch in and take a hit from the Volcanion and the Hatterene. I've got a lot of offensive options to kind of deal some damage to them, but I don't have a lot to switch in and take a hit, which is primarily why I'm bringing Mesprit to take a hit from those two, because I've got my Skarmory. Like I said, Skarmory switches in really well to the Hatterene if it's using Fairy or Psychic type moves, but if it's rocking that Mystical Fire, which I imagine it would be, Skarmory does not want to take one of those, and it definitely doesn't want to take two of those. And so I wanted to have something that was a little bit more bulky on the special side that could switch in and kind of receive some of that damage so that I'm not wearing down my more offensive threats. And so that's what Lobop's doing this week. And so that is my team. You'll notice, as I mentioned before, I don't have any status options on this team, and that was intentional. He's got two different clerics, both of which have potential to come. One of which I think is guaranteed to come, which is the Hatterene. It gets that aromatherapy, and there's also aromatherapy on the Rose Raid. And so what I don't want to have happen is to go for like a Toxic or a Thunder Wave or something like that, and then just eventually have that not, end up not having mattered because it gets cleared away with one of those Cleric moves. He also has the Magic Bounce Hatterene, which can reflect those Thunder Waves and those Toxics, and I don't want to cripple any of my Pokemon inadvertently if I'm not expecting that switch in. And so he does have some options where Thunder Wave might be helpful, but I think with the speed investment that I have, coupled with the Scale Shot and Flame Charge on Beans and Dennis here, I've got some speed options where I would not necessarily need to cripple his speed, and so I elected to increase mine instead of trying to decrease his, because like I said, he's got those clerics, he's got that Magic Bounce, he's got a Volt Absorbing Zeraora, which I can't paralyze anyway, and Weavile is so frail that I think in most scenarios I would elect just to attack him rather than try to hit him with a Thunder Wave or something like that, because like I said, in most scenarios he would probably just go down anyway. and I would rather just do that than to try to paralyze him and then attack him the next turn. I just don't see many scenarios where something like that would come in handy. Salamence might be a decent Pokemon to try to Thunder Wave, but again, I didn't think it was worth all the potential, deterrence and cleric options that he's got there. And he's also got that potential for the Guts Conkeldurr, and so I don't want to accidentally give that a status condition and increase his attack inadvertently in that way either, because then the Conkeldurr becomes a more significant problem. And so that's kind of the team that I'm bringing. There were a couple of Pokemon that I could have brought that made sense and had some viability, but obviously I can only bring 6. Zapdos was on one iteration of the team. I had Grimmsnarl on there at one point. I even looked at Nidoqueen and Decidueye at one point, but I think with some of his Pokemon, what I feel like he's likely to bring, some of them just didn't quite fit in the best way, and so I decided, especially with that Excadrill, Grimmsnarl doesn't want to take those Iron Heads, and Nidoqueen doesn't want to take those Earthquakes, and Decidueye kind of gets outpaced in some ways by the Salamence, and he's got the Weavile and the Roserade and things like that. And so I think this is the team that I'm the most comfortable with. I'm still not entirely sold on what he's going to be bringing in terms of the picture I have in my mind. So we'll have to see on team preview. I think my lead, what I decide to lead and what he decides to lead, is probably going to be really, really, really significant in this match, more so than some of the other matches, just because there is that diversity that's present in both of our drafts, and that initial matchup I think is going to be really, really critical, and I'm going to have to make sure that I do the best job that I can in predicting it, because I don't have any momentum options here either. I don't have U-turners. I don't have any parting shot on Silvally. I don't have Volt Switch. So we're looking at predictions and hard switches this week, and so I'm going to really, really hope that I can, come with the A game and be in the right mind so that I can take this win against Vincent. But that's pretty much all I got. That's my team. That's what I'm rocking. That's why I'm bringing it. Like I said, I would love to hear from you guys. Get your thoughts on the team I'm bringing. Whether you agree, whether you disagree. Like I said, I would love to get some feedback from you. But that's all I got for this one. I'm excited. Vincent, I'm coming for you. I'm ready. I hope you are too. I know we've been talking about it. So I know you are diligently team prepping as well. So I'm excited. And I'll see you guys in the match.